This is Jovan Jones, and you're looking at Extra Time TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Extra Time TV. This is Andrew Sooklal, and I'm joined by James Baird, our man from Scotland. James, today was a dark day for Trinidad Tobago football. We are now officially out of the running for the next World Cup. We drew with the Bahamas, which was a must-win game for us. We had to get 3 points in this game. A lot of people, not just us, were thinking that we were the favorites. And with good reason, the Bahamas were conceding. I can't remember how much goals it was, but you can remind me. But unfortunately, one of the scenarios we spoke about in our preview where, the Bahamas would go with 10 men behind the ball, close the spaces, and even created some chances. As you can tell by my voice, I'm a bit, exhausted by this and, shell-shocked in a lot of ways. I think everybody is. Although I did address this in the scenario, James and I in our preview, which you can check out. James, where do we start? What happened?
Well, they say when it rains, it pours, and today it definitely poured. I mean, we know in Trinidad it was lashing down the rain, and it didn't get any better on the field today. We looked like we had no creativity. I mean, first of all, it was an interesting selection. We discussed it obviously before the game. I thought with the introduction of Dwayne Muckett that we might have had the creativity there. We created quite a lot of opportunities, but I think Ian Lowe, the goalkeeper for Bahamas, pulled out 6 or 7 fantastic saves. He was probably the hero with them, along with their skipper Pritchard, I think it was. But not good enough at all. And I can hear those words coming from Terry Fenwick. He will be absolutely mortified with the result. I hope the players are too, because they just didn't do enough. And this is a game that, Bahamas have leaked 15 goals in 2 games. The Guyana game and then Puerto Rico. Abysmal. I'm trying to think of positives to say, but there's nothing I can find at the moment.
Yep. And, there's a lot of layers to why this went wrong. We've been talking about it for weeks. And a lot of people, I did my post-match reaction on Instagram where a lot of people responded, folks, which I really appreciated. So, James and I will do some more in the future. Basically, it's very difficult to find positives in this game. Bahamas did exactly what we said they would probably do, James. We spoke about this, where if you conceded over 10, how much goals it was, I can't remember, James. Was it 15?
15, yeah.
15 goals. I would try to plug the defense, tighten things up, even if I have to play ugly, and, stifle us, because based on our last games, with all the disruptions and so on, we haven't really shown that very, smooth type of football. I think in a lot of ways, we capitalized on Guyana's mistakes. We all know about the off-field issues, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But we're speaking about the match today. What I found was, for me, that stood out, because there's so many things to talk about. It was the demeanor of the players. We spoke about this, James, where Bahamas are going to go into this game. They went into this game with no pressure or whatever. It's all gone. They know they're out. They're going to play, as you said. They're going to go and express themselves, get some valuable experience. And this, kudos to the Bahamas. They performed. They did a really great defensive performance, and this will be really great for their morale. This will give them confidence in future tournaments. But for Trinidad and Tobago, to me, and this was really early on in the game where even Bahamas created a chance. I think it almost seemed as if our players thought that we were just the result was done and dusted, like it was just going to happen, and there was no urgency. I was not seeing the players really stepping it up. It's they were trying to pass the ball around and almost physically, try to one-on-one out muscle players, and they were falling over at times in the middle. I thought they were particularly kind of static at times. They did create chances, but they were very wasteful in front of goal. The Bahamas goalkeeper was quite effective in this particular game. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up. I think his name is Ian Lowe. The captain, I can't remember his name, had a wonderful performance. But also just to continue with what I'm saying, I thought we only really, the team only snapped and realized that, this game was probably going to have us eliminated. I think at the 90th minute, which was too late. I thought that reaction should have taken place maybe in the 70th minute or maybe before, because I could understand an element of caution because the game is not going your way. So you don't want to overly commit and then concede a stupid goal. But then as the clock was winding down, I saw the players were not moving around. The off the ball movement was strange. I even saw Terry on the sidelines trying to urge the players, because you could hear him clearly on the mic say, come on. And, I wasn't seeing the players responding. So it almost like if it was a day in headlights, like they were shell shocked. And, I saw a couple of occasions, Keston Julian and some of the wide players made some runs up, but there were times there were no support. There was a time where literally, I think I saw Keston Julian hold on to the ball for about maybe 10 seconds waiting for someone. And eventually the Bahamas defense was able to get their shape. There were times that we got in and behind the back four. And then, Market, held up possession, maybe instead of just going for goal. There was a couple of times he could have released players. It's a lot. It's a lot, James. That was one of the things I noticed. The players did not seem to have that urgency in need. And I think maybe their mind, they were so focused on the St. Kitts game that this game, just they took it for granted. What do you think?
I think there was a lot of complacency because, I saw some comments during the game saying things like we're knocking the ball about like Barcelona, which I found was a ridiculous comment because, yes, we were knocking the ball side to side, but you could do that all day and it's going to get you nowhere.
Yeah. You
have to be able to penetrate the opposition. And if you don't do that, what will happen is what happened today. We'll get a draw and we will go out. So, I just thought we did not have that player who was leading the team. We did not have, even though we created chances, they were chances from wide. They were chances from mistakes. There was one, I think, dead ball I saw whipped in, which was an excellent ball, but the goalkeeper got first to it. And the funny thing is, Bahamas actually created quite a few interesting chances too, because I thought Leslie St. Fleur had 2 or 3 chances which could have really embarrassed us, So I think it was a terrible day at the office. I think there's very little players in the Trinidad team sheet that could hold their heads high. Where do we go from here? Because, at the end of the day, we say this is us out now. We obviously have to pick ourselves up for the game against St. Kitts. Will there be changes, on and off the field? We don't know because it is such a disastrous result. And then, obviously, we're supposed to have Montserrat in a month's time, which I was aware was a Gold Cup qualifier. I'm not even sure of that now because of this result. But that's a Montserrat team that are a very talented team, way above a team of this Bahamas level. So, it's something to really consider. But I am actually shell-shocked. And I think that's why we're both probably, people would say we're rambling maybe a little bit, but I think it's in pure shock because we did not expect this at all. And then the funny thing to bring to the table is we mentioned about the new kits. Did it work? Well, it definitely didn't.
Yeah, if I was the marketing person for ball, they would have to do a lot of, they would be having a brainstorming meeting right now saying, okay, guys, how do we turn this into something positive? Because I guess their marketing team, which is a little bit off topic here, they tried to strategically do this where they assumed we were going to have a good result against the Bahamas and, start on a positive moment. And it didn't happen, and people who look at sports are very superstitious. That's what they're going to remember when we brought that new kit. But we'll talk about that afterwards. We have a video about our reactions to that, folks. You can check that out in the link in the description below where James and I give our full thoughts on the uniforms and things like that. But, back to footballing matters, from a tactical perspective, I'll just touch on Bahamas once again. They set up their team really well. I thought the goalkeeper had a magnificent game with all things considered, because this is a team where, there was a lot of players that player for player, depending on who you ask, there was on paper, which, as we all know, is the biggest cliche. The game is not played on paper. He had an amazing game. The defensive pairing had a defensive game. Their midfielders, where they lacked the little polish and technique, they made up for it in grit and determination, which there was a time I was looking at the game and, I saw times where the Bahamian players were way more aggressive towards getting that second ball in clashes while our players were jogging around and, attempting to play passing football, which was ineffective. I was very unimpressed with the speed where they were trying to release the ball in the middle. I was also shocked that our midfield trio was they were unable to really make those decisive quick passes to transition from defense to attack. And I know that's a very overused term by many analysts, but they just didn't do enough. And even the chances they created, I was very much shocked how much we lack a proper finisher up front, because we had chances, James, and you pointed out this before we got on air. Maybe a Plaza or Lobo would have come in handy here. But I think all parties involved, I did not think that I would be saying this, because I said it in the pre-match preview that we did, that it has to be very calamitous. And if it's one team that can do it, it's Trinidad Tobago. But I was optimistically hoping for the win. So James, I mean, it's very little we could really say positive about this. But let's talk about the situation. The coach of the team, as always, is always responsible for the results. We know he has not been favored by a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think that this would be curtains for Terry, or would they, hold on to him? What do you think?
It's a very difficult one, because I think the general public are very much against Terry, and they have been from day one. I mean, and that's something that I don't want to say Terry doesn't care about. I mean, he is very much a football man. We know this, but results speak for themselves. Now, you could say they didn't lose the game, so are you going to fire somebody because a draw? But at the end of the day, it's an embarrassing draw, and it's obviously put us out of the tournament. So generally, coaches last the period of the tournament, and although I did remember a clause in the contract, I think if he got past the Gold Cup, there'd be an extension. So they may give him till then, but I think there's a good chance that he could go after this game, because, as I say, if it was a game we went out, we died fighting on the field, in a sense, I could understand, him staying around and keeping him around. And it feels difficult to talk about, a fellow coach like this, but the fact it was such an abysmal performance, I really can't see any other options at the moment.
And, James, you and I have a unique perspective on this. You've coached, you've played, I've coached for a little while and worked around, some clubs as well, and been around some teams just like yourself. But, I want to hear your perspective as a guy who has been around and you've coached. So you have a team, you prepare. How do you think Terry is feeling, knowing that, possibly I prepared in the best way reasonably possible, and the performances just doesn't pay off? Like, what goes through the mind of a coach in a situation like that, at least in your mind?
I'll be honest, I've said it time and time again over the last few months. When I've watched the games, I could see I don't want to say a hint of doubt in Terry's mind, but you could see something there, that it was as if the players were not getting his plan, what he wanted them to do. And there was at times when I was watching the game tonight, I was looking down at the touchline, and he didn't seem as animated as we know Terry. And I think that's a telltale sign from, for somebody that we know as football through and through, his passion usually is overspilling into the field.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that tonight, which worries me a little bit, and I think this is a job that Terry's wanted for so many years. And to be honest, I had such high hopes, and I think a lot of people did too, that he was the best man for the job. Now, I'm not saying he's not, but I think he'll be very disappointed in the players. I don't think he'll necessarily throw the players under the bus, as they say, in the press conference, etc. But I think deep down he will be very disappointed, because there's guys that he's given a chance to there. They've maybe not turned up a few times now. And at the end of the day, we know you live and die with your decisions as a coach. So it's a hard one for him to take. He will be mulling it over. He will be thinking about it. He'll probably be talking to his staff, but it's a very disappointing day for all.
Yeah, and just going back to the players and so on. One of the things that I highlighted in my post-match reaction on Instagram and other articles that I wrote on EXTV Media, and I've always said this, so anybody who doubts me, I've always been consistent with this. Whether you like Terry or not, there are some problems with Trinidad and Tobago football that are present no matter who the coach is. So, for example, let's say, okay, people don't like Terry, they replace him and they bring in someone else. That coach now has to face the same sort of obstacles that Terry has to face in terms of the pandemic, players not playing any football, the ability to train is hampered, players flying to games, we apparently are very much not good at that. And there's a lot of things that obviously lead up. And James, you're a coach as well. If you don't have those things in place, whoever is in charge is going to have problems. And from the very beginning, he took over a national team that, the normalization committee came in. A lot of things took place, all the well-documented nonsense. We always keep talking about that, off-field issues. And, it just seems like it was one thing after the next. And, it's something I'm thinking from a bigger picture. If whoever comes in, because I can't really think of any candidates right now, do you think that in the present state of Trinidad Tobago football, that things would be improved?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is it's very ironic, this result after the players and staff were paid yesterday, which I find from an ironic point of view, they got what they wanted in a sense, and they just didn't turn up today. I mean, people would say maybe that's me being unfair, but so I wanted to get that out there first, that statement. Coaches will always want a job, so there will be people probably, as they say, cutting their teeth, waiting for this opportunity, because there's been so many critics of Terry, in the past. And I'm not even going to say the names, but I know for a fact there's a few. And they will feel they can come in and do the job. But at the end of the day, you're right. You said there's COVID, there's all these issues, there's the logistical issues, there's the normalization committee. It's not an ideal job for anybody. And let's be honest, Terry never had it in an ideal situation either. I think, if you want to be fair, you say, well, okay, it's a terrible result. Let's see what happens in the Montserrat game, if you want to be fair. But I know football's not always fair, so, but as I say, there will be people looking for the opportunity. But the sad reality is we have so much talent, whether COVID or no COVID, playing locally, playing abroad. The ironic thing is, remember, there was a whole local squad training. Would that local squad have done better than the squad that was called up? There's so many questions, and it's all what if. And it comes down to the end of the day, Mr. Haddad probably making the decision. He may have already done, we don't know, or the executive or whoever it may be. But the decisions has to be made what's best for Trinidad and Tobago. And I sometimes don't always see that.
Yep. And I can see the same narrative that I've been hearing for all my life in Trinidad and Tobago football. I could bet my last dime, although we don't use dimes in Trinidad and Tobago, but my last penny, we don't use that. We don't use pennies either. But, I could bet my last cent that in the reports now, you're going to see the usual things, of course, the usual thing is fire the coach. Because, as you say, you live and die by your decisions. Then you're going to hear all the people coming outside and saying what we need to do with Trinidad and Tobago football. Again, like if we haven't heard it before. And then you're going to hear that we're going to have to work with grassroots football and work all the way up and focus on the youth. And James, it's the same thing over and over. When are we going to get it right? Because I'm thinking, we have the normalization committee. Is it that people have to know, and I guess Haddad will be the guy who has to bear this burden. I know a lot of people are not happy with the normalization committee and how they do things, but people have to understand we have been put, and there's a correlation between this and the game in case people think we're rambling off. There's a connection to this, and there's a reason why we have the show so you could understand the different aspects of the game. Of course, you are judged on the game, but there's a lot of factors that play into this. This debt that the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association has, brought upon itself has been brought upon us by many, 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 many years of his management, way before even the Wallace administration. I know a lot of people have their thoughts on that, how they were wrongfully removed and things like that. It's a whole other discussion. But now Haddad has to, and we spoke about this, find a way to solve this debt while still keeping the national teams functional. I don't know if a lot of people know this. Normally with a normalization committee, yes, I said that twice, most countries shut down completely. They don't have anything going on. So I think, right now the clear and present obvious thing, it's this draw today that feels like a loss and our elimination from the World Cup. But I think truthfully, even if we get another coach, we can't realistically expect much changes until maybe minimum 5 years from now. And that's assuming we do everything correctly, because you have to have the right support. You need funding to run a national football organization. That there's no escaping it. It's not back in the day where you can just train and it works itself. You have to ensure everybody's in the same path, and it all goes back to the game. If those things are not put in place, we're going to get results. And this has been a problem that's been going on a while now. And I think, James, to be quite honest, I think, Trinidadians, I mean, myself included, we were hoping for the best. But based on what was going on for all these months, is it really that much of a surprise that we ended up in this position we're in? I mean, no matter what, losing to Bahamas is bad. There is no doubt about that. I mean, stress or not, the kind of players we have, we should have beaten Bahamas. But, what do you think about that? Do you think that, that this outcome was really that surprising?
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I'm going to say two things.
Mm-hmm.
Talk's cheap. Everybody here wants to be a coach. Everybody wants to analyze everything. And I hear everybody talking about, we need to do this. We need to work a team towards 2030 and this and that. But it does not happen. The only people that are going to do it is the people in the role or in the job or us. And if we don't do something about it, this is going to continue happening. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing is that, as you said, it's not surprising, because at the end of the day, the definition of insanity is if you do the same over and over again, you're going to get different results. It's not going to happen. Really, I mean, I remember when Scotland had a problem, I think it was in the mid to late 90s, maybe even early 2000s. They brought on a coach, Bertie Vogts from Germany. And he played the under-20s for about 3 years. And people said, this man's crazy. What is he doing? And then out of that came a whole bunch of talented young players who went on to play in England. Some of them went to Spain, blah, 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 all over the world. But he had a plan. He had a vision. I don't see anybody with a clear vision. As I say, talk's cheap. Everybody wants to say what they can do. Do it then. There's all these academies all over the country. They want to develop players. I mean, the one I would say, for example, is Anthony Sherwood, for example, from down south. I know has done excellent. Levi Garcia and guys have came through. Maybe these are the guys that need to be involved in the national programs. Why are they not involved? So there's so many questions, more than just, why is Terry Finnett not getting results? It goes from the bottom up and from the top down, and these things have not been addressed. We've had great coaches, we've had not so great coaches, and then so there's so many things, so many pieces of the puzzle that need to be fixed. The normalisation committee was brought in there basically to stabilise everything, to help get the funds back. I mean, I cannot see where they're going to get 98 million from, but we will see about that. And then obviously we have an election which will come around once they leave. But there's so many things that need to be fixed. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen probably the following year. So we have to expect, sorry to say, I mean, not necessarily results like this, but not fulfilling our potential for a long time. And I feel bad saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality of the situation, and it's been that way a while now. I said it from the very beginning when he was appointed, even when Dennis Lawrence was appointed, but it's different now. The situation was even more dire. I said he has a mountain to climb when he was first hired. And I always said it. I said he took over Trinidad Tobago football at possibly the worst ever time. Like, I thought he would have really thrived years ago, even around the time Stephen Hart was hired. Although Stephen Hart turned out to be pretty good, as we all know. Even after Stephen Hart, I thought Terry would have been a good choice. But I mean, there's so many factors that, like I said, whether you like Terry or not, the other coach that takes over is going to have these problems waiting for him. Or, who, you never know. I'm being progressive. But, it's definitely a dire situation. My headphones are falling off while saying this. But, before we'll speak about the match against St. Kitts in a separate video. But, what do you think the morale is heading into this last game? Because, everybody was assuming we were going to win this game and St. Kitts was going to be the difficult game. Do you think this will affect the players going in, or, they're going to be, this was going to be a slap in the face they need, and they're going to put in a good performance, which will probably have, maybe people reconsider getting rid of him and at least keep him around until the Montserrat game. What do you think about that?
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, the players need to buck up their ideas. I mean, that gives them that opportunity on Tuesday to do that. I think there'll be quite a few changes going into that game. Whether it is, I mean, I don't think, for example, Adrian Fonseca did anything wrong, but we know Nicholas Fenrick was supposed to come back. Will that change take place? Probably. And I think even from an outsider's point of view, he may give opportunities to guys that were not going to play because, what's there to play for anymore? So there's a whole bunch of thought processes that could go into it. But at the end of the day, they should put a team out there to go get some pride. We cannot go through, we're out. But, let's go beat the team that are going through. So that's what we could do. But it's not the ideal situation. But one of the things I found very interesting is, I noticed earlier on today, I think Anguilla played, who's obviously coached by Stern John. They had 6 or 8 players who were out with COVID. And they were able to change those players, obviously, and bring in other players. Why were we not allowed to do that? I mean, maybe the fact that we submitted a list, we had to pick from that. I'm not sure the rules, at this stage of the tournament, but it seemed they were able to bring in a whole new team virtually, and we were not. So, I mean, it's an interesting question. Maybe some of the fans might know, I don't know. But I really hope whoever plays on Tuesday wears this. I hope it's a red one this time because the white one didn't give us much luck. But
yeah,
and really play for a little pride.
Yeah. So, folks, this is definitely a discussion where I could tell you this. When I did the Instagram feed, a lot of people had a lot to say. It's more than we could really talk about right now because this has been a series of events that led to this point. So, for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of things that have been taking place, which led to, unfortunately, I think it was going to happen sooner or later, James. Unfortunately for us, it happened sooner. I thought we probably would have edged through this group and then we probably would have gotten shown up in the next round. That was my honest opinion. But in a lot of ways, and this is me the glass half full, that, this is a slap in the face that the people who are in charge right now will say, okay, they'll have to make a decision. Do we sit down and trust and say, okay, let's stick with Terry, give him the time like how Dennis Lawrence had the time and, other coaches had the time. Not Tom. Tom didn't get that time at all. Because we don't have that money to throw around, to be honest, to hire a new coach. When you end a contract and, you have certain things, there's a lot of financial things that you have to sort out, especially if you terminate a coach, for those who understand those things. I mean, I don't know what the contract is. Apparently, it's leaked every now and then, which is another topic. But I'm thinking, just to end this off, it's a discussion that we just scratched the surface. But if you all pay attention to the videos of James and I, there's a narrative going on where we have lots of problems in Trinidad and Tobago. And, that next game against St. Kitts, while it's no longer crucial in terms of qualification, it's crucial in terms of putting in a good performance for the team and the players so they don't lose that little momentum they were having, because there was a little feel-good factor, even though we weren't playing good football. I think if you look at these players, they are capable of getting a result. And then, if the players that turn up do, I think they'll be motivated, maybe a game too late. But from that should be the game springboard to push them forward for the upcoming qualifier to get to the Gold Cup, which we'll talk about, folks. So, folks, I'm going to end this off and we'll do a preview of the Trinidad and Tobago versus St. Kitts game. So be sure to check that out. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comment section. My energy levels are not as high as they usually are because I'm still reeling from this loss. We're supposed to have my headphones are flying out because I just can't take it, James. I can't. But we've also worked possibly an interview with someone from the Bahamas FA because kudos to them. They got a good result. They were getting smacked around and they got a good result today. So, congratulations to them.
I'll say one thing on that before we finish. It's ironic that I heard the coach who coached them today was a stand-in coach. So what a result that is for him. I think it was Davies or Davis or something like that. But he got that result because I think the head coach couldn't be there from what I hear. So wow, what a result. What a way to have your first game as national coach.
Yeah, like Bahamas, kudos to you, that team. They got their tactics right. They could have easily not been motivated and just rolled over, which I knew and we pointed out they wouldn't do, and they didn't. So they got their tactics right. The players played with the right intensity. Their goalkeeper pulled off some, pretty impressive saves. And, kudos to them. Kudos to them. And I think it's a good reference point for them moving forward. So, folks, we'll end it off here. Like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out our video on the ball uniform. James and I gave our reaction. You could actually check out a discussion where we actually spoke about this possible scenario with Trinidad possibly getting a bad result against Bahamas, which was unthinkable, but it turns out it has happened. So check those things out. Head over to extvmedia.com as well. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. So James, it's been great. And everybody else, thank you for joining us. Whew. That was one of the more difficult shoots I had to do.
That was difficult, and I don't think it was our best. I'll be honest. I think we were reeling to. I don't know. I don't even know.
Just a reminder, everyone, for more episodes with Shaka Hislop, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more updates, interviews, and content.